We have the great Sean Davis here. Sean, welcome. You went very viral yesterday on X, and thank you for your courageous moral clarity on all of this. I don't like people, oh, what side are you on? It's not a matter of what side. I'm on America's side. I'm on Team Civilization. I can't stand Iran. I hate the mullahs. I'm profusely pro-Israel. I also have the battle wounds and scars the last 5 years of being lied to about the 2020 election, COVID, Biden's mental health decline, Hunter Biden laptop, all of that. And so I'm going through a list of questions here, Sean, and I just want to have you kind of go through this with me. So the other one, I asked this because I'm saying, like, here's our things we deserve answers to. By the way, President Trump's handling this beautifully because I think this one, who knows why he's pausing? This could be one of the main reasons. What are the chances of a civil war if there's regime change in Iran? Says the same people who pushed for Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, regime change are doing it again. What have they done to re-earn our trust? Is this about nukes or is it about removing a regime? Sean, in the last week, it's gone from, very interestingly, this is Israel's war and let Israel finish it, great, to America needs to do bunker busters, to now some people are saying we need to do regime change. What exactly is the goal here?
Yeah, we don't know. And that's what I find so frustrating because I lived through and watched the Iraq war run up. You know, they spent a year and a half telling us about all this intel. They sent Colin Powell to the UN. Congress, at least to its credit, mistakenly, in my view, obviously in hindsight, actually authorized it, which is apparently something we don't do anymore, is have Congress authorize or declare wars. But they spent a year and a half kind of working the public, telling us all this stuff. Well, let's ignore that most of it was false. I feel like they're speed running through that propaganda campaign in the span of like a week right now. And I guess what bothers me, I want to go back to the beginning. I absolutely don't want our enemies, people who want to kill us, to have nuclear weapons that they can use against us. But I want to go right back to the beginning. What is the evidence that they are, one, about to get nuclear weapons? Where does it come from? What's the veracity? And then number two, what ability do they have to attack us? So I think even before we get to regime change, which a lot of people have wanted for 40 years, let's just talk about like that baseline question. What's the evidence? And I don't feel like we've been given any at all. Just like in the Iraq war, it's being asserted. And you know, it's not that I disbelieve everything that we're told. It's that I don't believe any of it. Rather than just assuming, oh yeah, it's coming from, you know, people who obviously wouldn't get stuff wrong. I just don't believe it anymore. Like, convince me, show me, don't tell me. And I don't feel like any of that's happening. And I find it really frustrating having seen in the past where that leads.
Well, so let's just take one of these pieces. So that's a phenomenal analysis. So somebody just emailed us. They said, Charlie, we have to bomb Fordo because it will totally eliminate Iran's nuclear program. Actually, that's not true, okay? And by the way, if it is true, then someone prove it to me, because we just had someone in front of the UN say they're still 15 days out. They're still 6 weeks out from a bomb. So, by the way, if Fordo is like a death blow and that's it, they'll never get a nuke, like you have just eliminated it, then go make that case. But if that was the case, then why are they also simultaneously calling for regime change, and the Israeli government is doing that? And so, again, we have been so misled the last 20 years, misled on Iraq, misled on Afghanistan, misled on the open border, misled on COVID, misled on the 2020 election, misled on Hunter Biden laptop, misled on Joe Biden's, Joe Biden's perfectly fine, it's a bunch of deep fakes. So you and I are trained as outsiders to look at kind of this narrative war and say, whoa, it's been a crazy week. Let's take a pause, let's take a breath, and we just need to make sure we're morally clear. Israel is a moral civilization, or Iran is controlled by crazy Ayatollah mullahs. No one has any moral confusion on this program. We're America first. We love America. We grieve when any innocents are dying. Okay, we get all those moral parameters there. But Sean, I can't help but think that there's so many different components here. Like, for example, if Fordo is hit with an American bunker buster, will it totally take out Iran's nuclear capability? And what is the percentage chance that it will?
Yeah, that's a great fundamental question. And again, I completely trust President Trump and his judgment. And I'm so thankful that he is president right now doing all this, and not all the other people, in the past or who've tried to run for that job in there, because I don't think they would have withstood any of the hysteria or the pressure. I think they would have gone right in, tried to do regime change, and we're right back in the mire that we were in Iraq. So I'm thankful he's in charge. The problem is that, a lot of these agencies, they're still run by the same kind of permanent bureaucracy, the deep state, whatever you call it. they've not exactly filled me with a lot of confidence. For example, we had bin Laden, who was the architect of 9/11, killed thousands of American people. It took us, 10 years to find that guy? He was living in Pakistan, like next door to the equivalent of their West Point Military Academy. We had no idea he was there. So I'm a little skeptical when I'm told that Fordo is the only source of uranium enrichment there. That's the only thing they have to worry about. They're 100% certain that if they take that out, there's no more nuclear threat. Okay, but what if that's not correct? What if there's somewhere we don't know about? What if they have other facilities? What if the bunker busters don't work? And I'm reminded of the timeless quote from foreign policy sage Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And we seem to think that, as long as we're the ones throwing punches, no one else is going to counterattack or counteract. And I'm really concerned if we go and do this and it's not immediately 100% successful, there are some really, really serious ramifications at that point. What if we don't take out the nuclear program? What if that causes them to race into producing something that they maybe hadn't thought of? That creates a really, really dangerous, completely unstable, chaotic situation that will probably make us far more endangered than we are now. And it bothers me that nobody's actually talking about what we know and what we don't know, and with what certainty we know or don't know anything.
So Sean, let's go through another one of these questions. How many American troops might die in an Iranian retaliatory strike? Do you know?
It's a great question. And I've seen some stuff from maybe it might have been the Pentagon or some other sources. And they said, well, yes, obviously, Iran can't hit the U.S. mainland. They just don't have the ballistic missile capability as far as we know. We could be wrong on that. But they're able to endanger troops in the area. And so I think, well, obviously, that's intolerable. My generally baseline kind of operating assumption is if something's not directly in our interest, if we're not directly threatened, I really don't want to be accepting any American casualties. But the best way to make sure crazy regimes or evil regimes can't target people around them is, maybe we don't have troops everywhere around there. It becomes a lot harder to target our troops around the world if we don't have them everywhere around the world. And again, it's us having to relearn the lessons of Iraq. If we hadn't gone in there and blown it up and created a disaster of the whole thing, leading to ISIS and all kinds of horribles, there wouldn't be people over there to be getting harassed or shot at. And that's something that I don't think is discussed nearly enough. We kind of just take it as a given, as if we have no control over where our people are and how close they are to being targeted.
I think President Trump deserves enormous credit here that he's not getting from the media, because the clamoring from Capitol Hill. Let's play some of these pieces of tape here. Do we have Lindsey Graham or Tom Tillis? I'm sure we do. We have endless clips here. And President Trump, he's not an isolationist. He's not an interventionist. He's something completely different. He's willing to use American force where necessary. Here we have dozens of these. Okay, how about this one? Tom Tillis, rock star, play cut 380.
It's time for regime change. And I believe that this president should be given a fair amount of leeway to affect that.
Regime change. How about this one? 331.
Do you think the United States should assassinate the supreme leader if they can?
The assassination of any individual, any foreign dignitary or leader on this, but we most certainly need to have regime change in Iran. This is the same regime that's threatened America and Americans. This is the same regime that oppresses their own people, that they use the money that they get from oil money to be able to put towards terrorism, to be able to kill us and our allies. They chant death to America in the streets. We definitely need a new regime there.
So basically his answer is yes, we should assassinate the supreme leader. So let me kind of go through my questions again. What are the refugee estimates of such a regime change? And what are the chances of a civil war? Sean, what did the quagmires of the Middle East tell you about when D.C. is calling? By the way, they have they're saying no shame. They haven't gone to a PR agency and come up with a new term than regime change. They're just using the exact same term as if nobody's learned and nobody cares. Sean Davis.
Yeah, it's really actually kind of sad and discouraging to see how many DC politicians on both sides have never found a war they're not willing to send other people's kids to die in. And I'm of the generation, the war on terror, Iraq war generation. I have friends who were over there who are injured, spiritually, mentally, physically. You talk to a lot of them now and they say, well, I look back now and what did we accomplish? We would go and pour out our blood and sweat and tears to take one little hamlet or village, and then a month later we'd be pulled out and we'd be back to where it was at the beginning. And that's not even getting into the issue that you brought up of refugees. You know, as our government was pushing Syrian civil war, where did all those people go? They flee. They flee to Europe. They flee to the U.S. When we had the fall of Afghanistan, a place that we should have been out of 15 years ago, if not longer, we had all kinds of people, not good people, by the way, a lot of them terrorists, flooding into here, claiming asylum or refugee status. This always happens. And you look back through history, whether it's the Middle East or whether it's through Africa, these wars have massive, massive consequences. And as Americans, we seem to just think that if we say or wave a magic wand of regime change, that we'll have Western liberal Democrats in there who will, say all the things we have, and they'll have a thriving democratic republic like we do. And what actually happens is you end up displacing millions, if not tens of millions of people. You have refugee camps around the world. You have people coming in here by the millions, many of whom are impossible to vet and often mean us harm. It creates utter chaos. And it is shocking to me, given what we've lived through. We're not even talking about having to go read a history book to learn its lessons. We all lived through the last 25 years.
Totally.
To see so many people
right there.
not
look,
learn a
guys,
single thing from it. It's insane.
We just hit $37 trillion in debt yesterday, okay? And some people in D.C. are clamoring for yet another regime change war.